John found the dream retirement number online. Costa Rica for $2,000 a month. Rent looks possible. Food looks possible. Transportation looks cheap. But April has one question John hasn't answered. What happens when Medicare stops at the border? Today we're testing the $2,000 Costa Rica retirement claim against real numbers. And by the end, John and April will know whether this is a real plan or just another internet retirement myth. Every number in this episode comes directly from the Social Security Administration and Costa Rica's own government agencies. Links in the description. John and April aren't guessing blindly. John has spent months reading everything he can find about retiring to Costa Rica on a fixed income. He's 58. April is 52. John plans to claim Social Security at 62. April will stop working part-time once he does. According to the Social Security Administration's own June 2026 data, the average monthly benefit for a retired worker is $2,084.40. That's the number John is planning around. Not a guess, not a hope. The government's average. And everywhere John looks, the same claim keeps repeating. $2,000 a month is enough to live comfortably in Costa Rica. So John ran the numbers against categories he could actually verify. Rent, food, transportation. On paper, the math works. Let's put $2,000 against this, one category at a time. Rent? Better than expected. Here's the surprise. Costa Rica's prices have actually been falling slightly during much of 2026. But rent didn't get the memo. Analysts using Costa Rica's own government data found rent has climbed nearly 4% over the last 3 years, even while everything else got cheaper. A one-bedroom in San Jose runs somewhere between $750 and $1,400, depending on the neighborhood. Call it $1,000 as a working number. Running total, $2,084 minus $1,000 for rent leaves just over $1,000. Still, workable. Food? Better than expected. Government data shows overall prices have eased this year, not climbed. Transportation? Better than expected. Regulated directly by the government, not a travel blog's guess. A ride from San Jose to Savannah runs around 310 colones. A few dollars a month for someone not driving. At this point, John thinks he's winning. Then they find the one expense that changes everything. April's question. What happens when Medicare stops at the border? Here's the answer. And it isn't a technicality. Medicare does not work outside the United States. Not partially, not in an emergency, not ever. According to the U.S. State Department, Medicare and Medicaid do not cover care overseas. And most hospitals and doctors abroad require cash payment. Medical evacuation back to the United States can cost as much as $50,000. That single fact breaks the version of this plan that only prices rent, food, and buses. It doesn't break the plan itself. Costa Rica has its own public health care system, CCECR. Legal residents can enroll, and the cost isn't a mystery. It's calculated as a percentage of declared income, according to CCECR's own published minimum contribution rules, generally somewhere between 10 and 18%. Run that against John and April's $2,084, and CCECR runs somewhere between $200 and $375 a month. Running total, what's left after rent minus CCECR. Private supplemental insurance and evacuation coverage belong in this budget too. CCECR is the floor, not necessarily the whole answer. Affording it and being legally allowed to live there are two different questions. Costa Rica's own entry rules state that maximum stay is set by the immigration officer at the point of entry, not guaranteed in advance, typically up to 180 days for eligible travelers, including U.S. citizens. That's a tourist stay, not residency. If John and April want to live in Costa Rica long-term, they'll eventually need the Pensionado residency program. And that is exactly what we're covering, start to finish, in our next episode. If you're planning your own move to Costa Rica, or anywhere else abroad, subscribe to Next Chapter Abroad. Every episode is built from government agencies and verified official sources, so you can make retirement decisions based on facts, not marketing. New evidence-based episodes every week. So, can you retire in Costa Rica for around $2,000 a month? Yes. But not the way the internet tells you. You can if you control housing costs, if healthcare is budgeted from day one instead of discovered after the fact, And if you pick the right town instead of the most expensive beach postcard. Here's what that means for you, specifically. If your Social Security check is close to the national average, if you're willing to live outside the most expensive beach towns, if you're prepared for healthcare costs instead of surprised by them, then Costa Rica moves from internet fantasy to a realistic retirement option. Not a guarantee, a plan you can actually build. So here's what John and April should actually do. First price. CAJA enrollment against their real projected income. Not a placeholder percentage, an actual number. Second, get a real rent quote for the specific towns they're considering, not a national average. Rent is the category with the least reliable public data. Third, treat the 180-day tourist stay as a test run, not a plan. Book a trial stay before committing to anything permanent. Fourth, price private supplemental insurance alongside CAJA, so the healthcare number is a real budget line, not an estimate. This was never really a question of whether Costa Rica is cheap. It was a question of whether the full retirement plan actually works. It works, but only if they stop treating healthcare as an afterthought. Download the free Costa Rica Readiness checklist below. It walks through rent, food, transportation, healthcare, entry rules, and the first 90 days of testing Costa Rica before you commit. John and April have their answer. The average Social Security check really can cover a Costa Rica retirement, but only once healthcare has a real number attached to it, not a placeholder. If you're in the same position, a number that looks right, a claim you found online, and a budget that hasn't been checked against a government source, run your categories one at a time. Price the thing nobody mentions, then decide. The best retirement abroad is not the one with the best headline. It's the one with the whole picture priced in. This is Next Chapter Abroad, helping Americans navigate retirement in Costa Rica and beyond, using official sources, verified data, and real planning timelines. Your retirement, your world, every claim, every source, every time. We'll see you next time.